Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you to the college. I have not been here before, so I definitely want to go on the tour. It is just beautiful. It's really nice to be out of the city, I gotta tell you. I'd be really happy if I got to spend the weekend out here. It's just so beautiful. And of course, most of all, many thanks to Ann Hamilton and the Chamber for the great work that they do, and for inviting me here today. We really appreciate that. So I'm gonna have to talk like a chipmunk really fast because there's a lot to talk about with film and it's hard to get through it quickly. But let me just give you a little idea of what we do. First of all, the Massachusetts Film Office is within state government under tourism, which is under economic development. So that gives you some idea. We absolutely are about job creation and business creation and expansion, but also tourism. And we have many tools to work with. We started just 2 years ago with a photographic library. I did not inherit a single photograph from my predecessor, which was kind of rough. It's the way that we communicate with the industry. It's a visual medium, and they need to see what it is that we have to offer here. This is actually not right. We're up to 41,000 photographs. And this is something that I say wherever we go, we always need more photographs. If you know some place that's fabulous, just remember we're not tourism. We love the rundown barn. We love the gritty alley. Filmmakers like a more sort of authentic look. So we love things like abandoned jails and hospitals. So you got any of those? That's something that I'll talk about a little bit more later. We have about 1,200 clients. We, of course, deal with all the major studios, major mini majors, the networks, cable companies, and scores of independent filmmakers around the world. And again, this is where it's so important to have a medium to talk with folks. We have a production guide. This is for crew and businesses in Massachusetts. So if you have a business that you want to interact with the film industry, maybe you have a lumber yard or a B&B, you're very welcome. It's free to be on our site. And this is one of the first places that filmmakers go to. We do help with growing our community. We have grown to about 4,500 professionals working in film in Massachusetts, which is pretty huge, actually. But we have to keep that next generation. We got to prepare that next generation of crew and filmmakers. Businesses and services, as I said, that's really key. There are specific film companies like camera companies, grip and lighting companies, but this is the unique thing about film and why so many of the US states, 40 out of 50, offer a tax incentive, because it's a unique way to spend money. It's mobile. Wherever it goes, it wants to spend money there. And we, of course, really push. Don't go to Home Depot, go to Joe's Hardware. Use the local companies, and the union folks are really, really great about that. Green resources, that's something, if you go on our website, we partnered with the Producers Guild so that we can encourage people to have green practices when they're filming in Massachusetts. And very importantly, we started a training program which is for our cities and towns. It's kind of amazing. I was the film commissioner in New Mexico for almost 10 years. That's a huge state, but a very small population, and we have way more cities and towns than they do in New Mexico. We are unique in the way we are organized. So we're trying to get to each of our cities and towns, offer them some training, and offer to help prepare the road if a film comes. And our job is I come from Boston, but my job is every corner of this state. And we are dogged about pushing filmmakers to every part of this wonderful place. We support local filmmakers. That's a long topic I don't have time to go into, but that's very important for us to nurture our own filmmakers. That's where sustainability comes in. And film tourism, which I'll talk about in a minute. So there's lots of different ways, as I said, for us to market the state. The website is the sort of main portal. We do go to this huge trade show every year, which we just came back from in Los Angeles, where all the film commissioners from around the world come. And we were slammed. I lost my voice one day, which this is great. This is what you want. We saw 3,000 people. All the studios come, independents. It's pretty great. We do go to, we're part of an organization of the Association of Film Commissioners International. We go to that and prepare things for Cineposium. I have a trade mission about 3 times a year where I literally go and sit with each of the studios and networks. And what I've found, since we have very little money, we're actually under MOT, under Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. There's no line item for film. We kind of don't exist. Of course, we have a big mission. So we do everything we can to promote without, spending a lot of money. And the trick is to get on a panel. I've learned this. If I can get on a panel that has 300 producers, I don't have to pay to go to that. A lot of times I am hosted, and that is actually the very best way, is to get in front of producers and directors. We do very little advertising. Again, we don't have that kind of money. But the most important thing is, for instance, with Shelburne Falls, for the folks from Labor Day to talk to the folks coming in on the judge and say, especially when they're trying to decide on Massachusetts or Georgia, which was the case, we loved it there, the people were so great, we had a good experience. We could never pay for that. That peer-to-peer sort of reporting is everything. A couple other things which we'll get to. So please do go to our website. It is mafilm.org. We have a problem with people going to mafilm.com, which is Malta or someplace like that, and they won't give it up. We're trying to buy that domain, and it's not working. But it's pretty, packed with information. So please do visit the website. This is the trade show I was just talking about. We did do something pretty neat about a year ago. We have some I have some long-term relationships with some of the trade magazines. And we went to Variety and said, how about doing a special edition on Massachusetts? And they loved it. So we got a lot of different organizations and businesses together to do some advertising, and we had our own pullout in Variety. And it was like 10 pages long with lots of stories and all of that. It was the kind of thing that people keep, and a studio exec will keep, when they're thinking about where to go next. We do what we really, I think the easiest way to explain what we do is we're schizophrenic. We're left brain, right brain. We're dealing with the creative, financial, and logistical aspects of film. And those things sometimes don't jive, and that's what every film goes through, where the producer's saying, no, 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 and the director's saying, yes, I need that. So we are in that environment. The more we can sort of emulate the model of a production, the more we can really work well with them. For instance, they call me at 10 o'clock at night, or 6 on a Sunday. That's the way it is, and that's how we roll. We definitely have a very competitive tax credit. It's not by any means the strongest in the country, but it keeps us in the game. And the locations, even though finances runs kind of the world, and certainly film, we still have to make a movie. You still have to have great locations, really, interesting things that you won't find in Los Angeles, that you won't find anywhere other than right here in Massachusetts. Our crew and actor base is very strong, as I said. That's really important too. They don't want to have to bring everybody. And we started off the right way in Massachusetts by starting with our crew base. You don't start with infrastructure, you start with the crew. Tons of film-specific vendors, and we'll talk about stage facilities in a minute. But one of the things that people tend to overlook, which is important, we have incredible talent in this state in the post-production realm, that part of the industry with visual effects. Right here in the Berkshires, there are quite a few sort of expats from Los Angeles who are world-renowned visual effects people. So we push this all the time. Don't just come for the movie, come for the entire package. What are people looking for? What are filmmakers looking for? I sort of went through this. Everything. looking for things from the 1600s or something that could, be 2090. You never know. Every day is different. But when we're looking at places that are in rural areas, we're looking for that special something that a filmmaker will go wherever that is in the world, no matter what. If you have that special thing, they will come. So that's how we're trying to work with our communities to find those special things. And again, they're sometimes weird things, like a closed school or a courthouse. That really will draw because there are not that many in the country. Obviously, being film friendly, people question me what that means. It really just means, it doesn't mean you give away the farm, but you are open as a town or a city to working with the quirkiness of a film. I mean, it is like the circus coming to town. It's, as Mary Vilbon can tell you, especially with Warner Brothers last year, it's enormous. And it's moving that kind of a company around is pretty tricky. Also, just keeping costs reasonable. We want people to make money, but sometimes people just see dollar signs, and that doesn't necessarily work. But we're there to help with these things. So what we do is we read a script, we do a location breakdown, which most places don't do, so we're proud of that. And then we go through our database, but we also do a lot of Google searching and talking to our communities, because 41,000 is nothing. When we get to 100, 200,000 photographs, we'll feel a lot better. So this is a never-ending project. We will always need more locations, a certain kind of house or a farm or a school. It never ends, plus we need it from different seasons and that sort of thing. So that's where we need the help of all our communities. Then those filmmakers come to Scout and they choose their locations. So we kind of go from there. Something that people ask a lot is about the union zone, because this is a union business. It's not about Massachusetts. It's about the industry, our signatories to the unions and guilds related to the industry. And they're not allowed to travel beyond a certain distance without getting a stipend. And this is about safety. People wonder, why can't you move that zone? You can't have somebody, coming from, let's say, Marblehead and driving all the way to, let's say, Shelburne Falls without putting them up, because these people are working 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day, and then another hour and a half on either end. It's very unsafe. So just so you know, it is actually, that's what it's about. And in Massachusetts, it's simply about a small stipend so that person can stay overnight, and that's good for our hotels. As I said, 4,500 professionals. There's lots of other people that dabble in film. Business opportunities, one thing I will say, and I had a great night's sleep at the Hampton Inn. I have not been in a place I live in the city. It's really noisy. It was just great. But having enough infrastructure such as hotels is a really a big part of this, and also working with a hotel. You might have a company that's working 6 p.m. till 6 a.m., so when they get done at 6 a.m., if the vacuum cleaners start in the hotel at 7, they're going to be kind of upset. So it's sort of working with them, and that's where it becomes this sort of symbiotic relationship. These are the films, the major films, the big films that have been in Massachusetts in the past couple of years. We're definitely on the upward trajectory. 9 majors in 2011, 14 in 2012, and 21 last year. And already, this is just May, so in 5 months, we've dealt with 51 major projects. They don't all land, they don't all have their funding, sometimes they're for later on, but we've never seen that kind of exposure, so that's pretty neat. These are the cities and towns that there has been location filming in the past couple years, which is pretty great. People think it's all Boston. It's not. And sometimes Boston can be actually really difficult, and other towns that have a similar look will do well to duplicate it. I think this is important as business people to know that over 70% of our cities and towns have had businesses that have sold to the film industry. It's over 200 of our 351 towns. We won't be happy till it's 351, but we're getting there. And as you probably have heard, New England Studios, which is the first purpose-built soundstage facility in New England, not just Massachusetts, They opened their doors just recently. It's unbelievable, this place. It really is. I wouldn't even say it's like Hollywood. It's, we're talking about Warner Brothers, all these studios. Their infrastructure goes back to the 30s. This is not like this. This is state of the art. This is, they don't have to deal with the old behemoth, way of doing things. It is absolutely stunning. And this is totally private money, $41 million of private money into the ground, anchoring the industry for the future. It's in Devens, Massachusetts. So it's about an hour drive from Boston. And it sits right on the edge of that Union Zone. And it was part of the land that was Fort Devens that the Army decommissioned. And there are other stage facilities that are talking about this next year. So this is something I really want to talk about because we're here in Greenfield, and that's film tourism. And the best example would be the work that Mary Vilbon is doing in Shelburne Falls. First with Labor Day, which is now a couple of years ago. I think there were some bumps in the road. It is really difficult to accommodate something so large, but Mary really was the point person on that and dealt with it beautifully. We learned a lot from that, and so then when the next movie came, The Judge, which was probably 3 or 4 times the size of Labor Day, we had a lot of good ideas on how to handle it, but it does come down to constant communication. Even though it's a large entity, it moves quickly. If it's raining, they're moving to their cover set. If so-and-so's not feeling well, we're going to change to these pages. Even though it's large, it moves very, very quickly. And we were so excited that the New York Times, this wonderful woman, Pat Ryan, she actually has a house in that area. She came up and did a great piece on the movie and on Shelburne Falls, which is shown here. Again, we can't buy this kind of advertising. And she was totally on the right track saying, this is what's going on, it's pretty neat, you can see what's going on with the movie company, interacting. But it's a great place. There's some great B&Bs, there's great restaurants. This is a good place to go for a weekend. We have to, in this next year, find more and more opportunities to do this sort of thing. And as The Judge will be coming out, we'll be working with Mary on how to really, on a long-term basis, have the ripple effect of a movie having been there. I mean, the good examples for us would be Cheers, which is sort of bizarre because, first of all, I worked on that. That's how old I am. We only did exteriors. It was shot in California. But to this day, and I work near there, busloads of people coming up and having their picture taken in front of the Cheers bar. Film tourism is getting larger and larger, and actually the U.S. is a little behind Europe and even particularly New Zealand. New Zealand has seen just something like 90% uptick from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. But people like to experience where something took place, and so we're going to get more and more clever about how to create a tour experience. Even things like the peach pie that was in Labor Day, the recipe, having it available. That kind of thing really does attract tourists. And, I think in the next year we're going to see some interesting things. So that's sort of it for me. I thought I'd leave a little bit of time if people had any questions.
You took 41,000 photographs. How do you possibly organize a search for something?
That's an excellent question. So we use something called Real Scout. It is a software system that was built specifically for film commissions. When I was in New Mexico, they were starting, and we worked together to make something that was really user-friendly. It's a searchable system, so when you go in there, if you're looking for a certain kind of church, you can put that in. It'll show you all over the state where that is. Or you're looking for things from a certain period. There's many different searchable items. The important thing about this, from the old days when we used to, Xerox photographs and send them out, we have a lot of people working in different time zones, people from LA, but also people from Europe, Asia. They can go on there and find what they need 24/7. They aren't waiting because we're closed until the next day or Monday morning. And that's, I think, the beauty of it. Make it user-friendly, and also just pack it with as many photographs as we can. It's pretty good. It always will get better, but check it out. It's kind of fun. Yes, ma'am.
Related question, which is if you are interested in submitting photographs of locations, is there a way to find out whether you already have photographs, or can we just submit and you figure out if it's a duplication?
I know that's a really good idea. First of all, there's never enough. So if it's a great location, most likely you'll have an angle that we don't have or a season that we don't have. So we love that. If it is truly duplicative, you know, that could happen. You can just look it up. But please be in touch with us because everything you have is probably usable. It's great. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk more about what's going to be happening at Midland Studios and how that space is going to be used?
Yes. So it is just a facility. People tend to think that it's that they create content, that they're movie makers. They're not. They are just a facility. So they have 4 large soundstage soundstages that are, I think they're 20,000 feet apiece, and they're 55 feet high. That's the biggest thing. We've lost a lot of movies over the years where they needed something to build something inside, and no one has that kind of size except for maybe the military or an airplane hangar. So that's really important for doing large builds, but also being in literally a soundproofed area. And they have just opened up, so they had 1 small film in there. Right now there's 8 different projects that are looking at coming there. So what it does is it provides that facility that's needed. For instance, Captain America 2, they wanted to come to Massachusetts, but in order to use the tax incentive, you need to shoot 50% of your project. About 60% of it was supposed to be on a soundstage, so we lost it. They were really sad about that because we didn't have the soundstage then, it wasn't built, and it made a big difference. It's also something that a television show, and we're very keen on getting a television series. We have a couple things in the works. They live on a stage most of the time. They make, in an episode, usually about 8 days. They're usually on the stage about 6, and they go out in the world for a couple days. So the more comfy that is, the better. This is a facility that, you know, specifically has a mill, it has a catering space, it has production office space. The folks that started this come from the business, so they knew what the needs were. So we definitely could see a television series. They don't necessarily want to be in a raw space like a warehouse. They're used to having a home base in LA or New York. Yes, ma'am.
When Massachusetts loses a project, is there a state that always comes up that you lose it to? I mean,
No, it's a really good question. We definitely have our big competitors. Interestingly enough, it used to be Pennsylvania, but their tax program has some problems, and actually, for instance, American Hustle was going to shoot there, and they didn't have the money, so they came to Massachusetts. And David O. Russell had been here before on The Fighter, so it was a very good fit. Georgia, believe it or not, Atlanta kills us. It's just so funny. We couldn't look more different. You know, and certain projects, especially like a romantic comedy, they're not generally specific to a place. It's about the people in the relationship. So, you know, that's something that a studio could shop all over the United States and Canada and around the world to find just a good fit. Other things, especially things that are, of course, right now we have Black Mass, which is a Whitey Bulger story. That's pretty specific to Boston. And Johnny Depp as Whitey Bulger. Yeah. But his makeup looks amazing. And that's actually an interesting story because that's obviously a very painful part of our past. But as the location people went out and started talking, within an hour they had family members of victims talking to them. And they said, you need to do this here. This is our story. Don't take this somewhere else. Well, this is ours. Even though it's painful, it's ours. And the great thing is that the company has, South Boston still has, some real economic challenges. So this summer, they've hired all sorts of kids to help them with parking and that sort of thing. They're giving a lot of money to various charities. A ton of people from Southie are in the movie. And, that's one of those things that drives people crazy when they have their Boston accents wrong. It's really rough. I'm dying to hear how Johnny Depp does a Boston accent, but yikes. But this is the kind of thing where it could be, another, I have to say, my hat's off to Mayor Walsh, our new mayor of Boston. It's a little sticky to replicate some of that. It's painful. But he was great. He said, you got to do certain things so that we know that you're respecting this community, but we're not censors, and it is our story, and so it's okay. And other places, that would be very odd if they shot that in Toronto, which is another big competitor, is Toronto. They can kind of do Boston and Toronto a little bit. New York, we're doubling New York all the time. New York is having big problems. They're sort of too busy. They're out of soundstage facilities. So yeah, we've had fun doubling New York. Just recently, just a couple months ago, we had to recreate Occupy Wall Street because Wall Street was not interested in repeating that. So in Boston, they recreated that. It was hilarious because the mayor had only been the mayor for a couple weeks, and all these cars show up with officials and police, and they said, when did the Occupy Boston thing start up again? I'm like, no, it's a movie. It's a TV show. You notice NYPD, it's not Boston. It's, But they were completely flipped out that they didn't know that the Occupy movement was back. And we did a really good job of replicating that in our financial district in Boston. So it's an interesting question. Obviously, California is really having problems. They're not the #1 place for movie making anymore. Louisiana is. Canada's second. I mean, it is decentralizing very quickly. We're sympathetic. These are movie makers, these are filmmakers that we support and know and love, but they also get to do movies that are about New England, that have the great look, that they can really delve in, and they're not trying to make someplace in Toluca Lake look like Greenfield, They can go to the real place. And that's a great thing for directors. Directors are loving this, moving around the world. Yes, sir?
What else are they filming?
A lot of things are not announced, so I always have to be careful with that. We have especially, and actually it's a good thing to bring up. People always wonder, why don't you just say, what's going on? The thing is, the relationships are based in trust. And a lot of times, especially with studio movies, they're in the middle of a negotiation with an actor, and if it's premature, it's a problem. So, but I will say the Herald scooped us on a bunch of stuff the other day. So, of course, everyone knows Black Mass started this week. TED 2 is coming. We have a couple of small films that are looking all over the state. We have something very cool that's looking in this region, and we're really happy about that. And then you'll be seeing an announcement about a large movie. It'll be the big movie of the year for us. That's a true story, true Massachusetts heroic story. So we're particularly excited to have something that's ours. It's going to be in 3D too. Our story in 3D. That's pretty bizarre. No more questions? Well, thank you so much for having me. It's just really wonderful to be out here And just know your film office is there if you have questions, if you want to, and also because we have people from Buckland and Shelburne Falls, I got to give them a hand for the great work they've done working with movies.